And welcome to the Aaron Katzman Show. I'm your host, Aaron Katzman. We're here to speak to you about your life, your money, and your investments. And as always, we're coming to you from the spiritual and soon-to-be financial capital of the world, Jerusalem, Israel. We've got a really interesting show with a really interesting guest today. But first, if you got any questions or comments, feel free to email me at Aaron, A-A-R-O-N, at lighthouse with an L, lighthousecapital.co.il. That's Aaron at lighthousecapital.co.il. You can check me out on the web at www.aaronkatzman.com. That's www.aaronkatzman, aaronkatzman.com. You can find me on Twitter, and be sure to subscribe to the brand new YouTube channel where we've got all different content and videos and podcasts and everything that's out there. It is my honor to introduce Jonathan Feldstein. Now, Jonathan, this is a little bit different than we've ever done before. Jonathan is the president of the Genesis 123 Foundation. He's a veteran nonprofit executive who has had a career that spanned more than 3 decades representing several major organizations whose common denominator is supporting diverse, important projects in Israel. He's married with 5 children, moved to Israel in 2004, and this is really cool, okay? Follow me. He's been privileged to speak internationally to Jewish and Christian audiences from dozens of small and large churches, major conferences, such as the NRB, and, listen, is the only Orthodox Jew to have spoken publicly at the Billy Graham Library. Very cool. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm so glad to be here with you.
I appreciate that. Tell us a little bit about the Genesis 123 Foundation.
Sure. So it's a wonderful nonprofit that's now about 2 years old that we started with the way to build bridges between Jews and Christians with Israel in ways that are new, unique, and meaningful. We're not looking to replicate or compete or duplicate what other people are doing. We're looking for unique ways to make connections, to build up, and not in the traditional fundraising, hey, you're Christian, we're Jewish and Israeli, you love Israel, therefore you should support what I'm doing, but really to create genuine and unique relationships. And I've got a board that is not just diverse in terms of Jews and Christians, but in fact representing Jews and Christians from all over the world.
And what kind of collaboration? I want to use the word collaboration because that, when it's not collaboration, then it's a one-way street. Right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that one-way street probably means that we're taking their money. But you're looking for something a lot more than that, right? You're looking to collaborate between the two faiths.
Big time. As my personal orientation, I believe that in most things in life, things can be and should be a win-win. We have baseball, we have other sports, we have a presidential and other elections where there's a clear winner and a loser. If you're playing Monopoly, you have a winner and a loser. That doesn't mean in the rest of life, things have to be a win and a lose. So we're always looking to build partnerships and partnerships that enhance everybody. Before we moved to Israel, I had a bookshelf in my office and I kept 6 toy boats on top of it to engage conversation with people about what the term President Truman used is, as the water rises, all boats go up. And that's really my belief. So we look for partnerships with businesses, with churches, with other ministries, Jewish organizations. We really want to connect people, and that people should come away with a win. Whatever their orientation is, whatever their goals are, we want to enhance that.
And can you explain, maybe we should take it a step back. Why do you feel that's important? But there might be people out there who say, you know what, why do we need to collaborate?
So first and foremost, I'm really opposed to the idea of Christians, good Christians who love Israel, being used as what I term as a faith-based ATM, just trying to get money out. It's true, and a lot of Christians resonate with my saying that. It's not just Jewish and Israeli nonprofits that are involved. There are a lot of Christian organizations that do that as well, and it's very flagrant to me because to me it's abusive. But I think the reason for it, and what we've seen in the last seven decades with the emergence of the modern state of Israel, with the growth and development, and the understanding that there's no rational way other than God's promise, the affirmation of what God has promised for centuries, for millennia, that he will bring us to our home, that we're going to be exiled, fine. Now we're back, and now we're building that, and all of these prophetic things that God's promised are are proving themselves out, and Jews and Christians are, whether we're on the opposite side of the same coin or whether we're in fact sometimes on the same side of the same coin, we're united in the fact that we worship the Creator. We have a unique, each from our own respective perspectives, a unique relationship with God, and we do that with a lot of relating to Israel and the Jewish people as the common denominator for that. And I believe very strongly in building upon that. And you mentioned one-way street. I believe in building strong, wide bridges that have multiple directions and multiple access ramps, because we each have to approach it and be able to enter and engage from our own perspectives.
Now, I'd like to speak about some of the programs you run, but we'll get to that after the break. One of the questions I always like to ask people in this time period of Corona, of COVID, is to find opportunities, right? Obviously, everybody knows that there's no tourism and there's no nothing, right? But have you been able to sort of find an opportunity within our sort of hopefully temporary reality and still get your message of collaboration and working together out?
Definitely. It's hard, like everyone has suffered challenges and lost money and lost time during the situation, but we've gone virtual, and the message of building bridges doesn't need to only involve bringing people here. We had a great program that we'll talk about that unfortunately was canceled 10 days before. That would have been a huge success, and we spent a lot of time building and promoting, but we've gone virtual. We've got two fantastic projects right now. One is a regular webinar that is connecting Christians from around the world with unique Israelis with an inspirational message. The world in many ways is a broken place, and we're trying to bring positive messages, as you said, the spiritual capital of the world. Where better than to bring these messages from than Israel?
That's fantastic. Jonathan, before we go to break, can you tell people how they can contact you?
Sure. So our website is genesis123.co. Access there, or you can email me directly at jonathan@runforzion, runforzion.com. Jonathan@runforzion.com.
And this is the Aaron Katzman Show. I'm your host, Aaron Katzman. We speak to you about your life, your money, and your investments. And as always, if you've got any questions or comments, feel free to email me at Aaron, AARON, at Lighthouse with an L, lighthousecapital.co.il. That's Aaron at lighthousecapital.co.il. You can check me out on the web at www.aaronkatzman.com. That's www.aaronkatzman, aaronkatzman.com. You can find me on Twitter. You can be sure to sign up. This is like off the press. This is really important to sign up to my YouTube channel, because I'm like a YouTuber. I'm not a YouTuber, but I have a lot of content on YouTube. We are speaking with Jonathan Feldstein, who is the president of the Genesis 123 Foundation, which works on working with putting together, building bridges between Christians and Jews. And we're in the middle of a really interesting topic. And what I'd like to speak about now is what kind of projects, so people can get more of a feeling of what exactly you do. What kind of projects are you working on?
Right. So thank you. We generated or launched the Genesis 123 Foundation. We immediately came out of the gate, which is an appropriate analogy, with a program called Run for Zion, runforzion.com. Now, we've suspended that. That involves bringing Christians to participate in the Jerusalem Marathon for the first time as a unique Christian experience. I had met with the mayor of Jerusalem then, Nir Barkat. He affirmed to me that nobody had ever done that before. He loved the idea, and loved the idea that we were going to increase tourism. By the way, from a tourism perspective, what we had the ability to do, I just have to remember my numbers correctly, with an increase of as little as 5% in total participation, we stood to increase revenue for Jerusalem and the marathon by 15 to 20%. And that was, well, and we do have the potential, once tourism is back on its feet, to end up becoming the largest annual tourist activity in Israel. So we built a whole Christian pilgrimage experience around that, not just touring, but connecting with a bunch of nonprofits. As I mentioned before, we don't only want to take people's money and make them feel that that's the only way to support Israel, to bless Israel. We want to make deep, meaningful, personal connections. But we do give people the opportunity to raise money through Run for Zion. And we did so in a really unique way, and we'll do so when tourism is back up, by offering subsidies based on how much people raise, and we spread that money out over a wide range of nonprofits to give them incentive. For those who believe and understand God's promise and his formula in Genesis 12:3, I will bless those who bless you. He's not saying, bless Israel, I am the Lord your God. And if he did, we would say, fine, that's great. He says, bless Israel and I will bless you. And accordingly, we came along with a formula that says, based on how much you raise, we're going to subsidize your trip, even to the point of making it free. So that is the win-win that I alluded to before, because you can raise more money, support more causes and a wider range of people here in Israel, subsidize your trip, and come here and have a meaningful experience as a Christian, all wrapped together. So everybody wins. It's like a four-dimensional win. So unfortunately, 10 days before the Jerusalem Marathon was supposed to happen and Run for Zion, and we were going to have 2 busloads of people that had raised nearly $100,000 for these projects. This year, in our second year, that the plug was pulled. I don't believe there'll be a marathon in 2021, so we'll wait and put that on hold. We also have some other tourism-related projects, which are also on the back burner now. But what we leapt forward with in the last few months is two and now a third project that are specifically virtual. One is to engage Christian children with Israel. It's a fact that even if you're a Christian and you attend the most pro-Israel church, in very little exception, I've not been able to find an exception, but I'm not willing to discount that there might be, you do not have age-appropriate, biblical-related pro-Israel activities, even in the most pro-Israel churches for kids. So we created Verses for Zion, which is at versesforzion.com. Very simple idea, providing 72 biblical verses for kids at their own level, at their own stage of life, with their parents, with grandparents, with siblings or pastors or whomever it is, to study those biblical verses and understand how Israel is relevant through the most important text that we have, whether it's as Jews or as Christians. It's not only about money, but we do give people the opportunity by the same measure as Run for Zion to raise money to support the projects that we do. And in doing so, we also provide all kinds of incentives for the kids, from calling them biblical heroes to giving them postcards of the biblical sites here in Israel that they can put on their bedroom wall or wherever they want to, all the way to being entered for a drawing for a free trip for that child and one of his or her parents to come to Israel with us. So that's been really wonderful and well received. And the latest of them is something called Inspiration from Zion, which I think I just alluded to, is having that unique connection to people here in Israel that you wouldn't have even if you were coming into Israel, but that you're now having the opportunity to do virtually, and connecting with Israel in ways that are actually very intimate and inspiring. I'm not looking to beat people over the head with the reality that we do face. There's a threat of war and terror. We live with that here, but we overcome it. We're inspiring and we're blessed, and so we're giving that positive message, and that we envision that will be. We've done 2 programs. We've got 2 more lined up. We envision that'll take place twice a month in English, and then we'll also be rolling out in Spanish on a monthly basis.
And I guess one of the advantages, again, the opportunity is that as opposed to bringing groups here, which is very specific, you were telling me, I believe before we spoke, that you did a webinar and you had people from New Zealand, and
Yeah.
It's all over the world. So, you're not just building a bridge, you're building, I know what the global equivalent of one bridge would be, but that's what you're building.
Yeah, I have to think about what that's called, but you're right. It's funny because we built this based on the need to be relevant and active in a day when most things or many things had to be virtual. And the truth of the matter, on our last webinar last week, we had people from 14 countries going from New Zealand and Australia all the way through the Western time zone. And I've even said there's a greater demand in Asia, but a lot of people say, it's late at night. When you do it at 8 p.m. in Israel, it's 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning east of here. So I said, well, great, let's build up an English-speaking program that we'll do in the afternoon or morning here in Israel and catch people. I'm willing to do all of that. And it's amazing because the response has been, and this is something that will continue even after tourists can come. And if they come on a traditional pastor's tour, where they come here for 10 days or 2 weeks, and they get on a bus in the morning and they get on and off and on the bus multiple times and see the sites and take pictures. That's great. I support that and embrace it. But we just want to create something that's value added. If you're connected to Israel, whether you've been here or not, we want to create ways now that virtually we will be able to continue. By the way, just an invitation and something that you and I should talk about afterward. This will launch our Speakers Bureau, which was meant to be in person. Now it's not in person, but I'm going to invite Aaron Katzman to be one of the speakers on our Speakers Bureau. So when churches and ministries around the world want to learn about the world of Israeli business and investments and technology, here's an expert. We'll include you on our list of unique people with whom they can engage.
I appreciate that. And the fact of the matter is, as you develop, I think, it's the biblical aspect and and the holy sites is all very important. Obviously, that's sort of the spiritual, but there's a lot more. I think it's the word's getting out. There's a lot more to Israel actually than the spiritual side, and that's where like real collaboration, I would assume, can really, really start taking place.
Collaboration and deep relationships and understanding. Somebody wrote back to me after the webinar we just did how he felt like a fly on the wall. And that's what I want. I want people to really be connected and engaged and feeling like they're a part of this place. And yes, come here. When Christians come here, it adds dimension to their faith in ways that I don't fully understand because I'm not a Christian, but I understand it by seeing how it affects Jews who come here. And I know that. I know it in reality. I know it anecdotally. But I also know that if we're able to connect people with the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, the deputy to the U.S. ambassador, we've got a great program coming up, really exciting program coming up the first week of September, marking the anniversary of the murder of our athletes in Munich in the 1972 Olympics, with 2 current Olympians and the widow of one of those who was murdered. I want to connect people in ways that are very broad, and each person will relate differently. Someone wanting to hear Aaron Katzman speak will be different from somebody who wants to know what it's like to compete in the Olympics as an Israeli. But we want to bring it all together.
Sure. Jonathan, that's fantastic. Once again, how can people get a hold of you?
Genesis123.co is the website, or the easiest email is jonathan@runforzion.com. Run for Zion, RUNFORZION.com.
Jonathan, thanks so much for being on the show.
It's a pleasure. Great to talk to you. Thank you, Aaron.
And that's been the Aaron Katzman Show. I'm your host, Aaron Katzman. We speak to you about your life, your money, and your investments. If you got any questions or comments, feel free to email me at aaron@lighthousecapital.co.il. That's aaron@lighthousecapital.co.il. You can check me out on the web at www.aaronkatzman.com. You can check me out on Twitter. Be sure to sign up for the brand new YouTube channel, and we'll speak to you really soon. Thanks so much for viewing.